Hello, and thank you everyone for joining us today on this special Snyderverse Trilogy Full Circle event fundraising live video. Today we're going to be leading into Snydercon's stream of Batman v Superman Ultimate Edition. So we are going to talk about what we love about the franchise. We're going to share some thoughts, feelings, everything in between. But above all, we're going to help raise money for the AFSP because that is what we're here for. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and let's start this thing. Hey, buddy, how you doing? And let's bring in Andy as well. We have some other guests that will be joining us shortly as well.
That was a beautiful intro.
What a cool intro that was. And I love
that was actually sent to us by the hosts. They built everything for this whole event, and it was absolutely. I was blown away by how cool that intro was.
And the sketching sound was like it was very cool.
I liked it a lot. It was really fun. But here we are, everybody. We're going to go live with everyone involved. If you want to be in the chat, if you want to talk, ask questions, bring up stuff. We're going to talk about everything. So where do we begin, right? I mean, we did talk about this earlier this week where we love the Snyderverse and the Snydercon, and the whole movement is just this wonderful thing. But it's kind of hard to put into words kind of where we're at now with this whole Full Circle event. Yesterday had the Man of Steel watch party. Following that, he did a Q&A session. He had his wife, Deborah Snyder, a couple of his producing partners, and then he also had Christina Wren, who played Carrie Ferris, a.k.a. the soldier that was always with Harry Lennox, a.k.a. Green Lantern's girlfriend that was never made into fruition.
Carol Ferris.
So many cool things. Got lots of people popping in already. Wonder Anna. There we go. Let's see. The online Q&A was after the movie. I wish I could have been a part of the watch party. Yep. The online Q&A for today. After we're done at 3:00, we are actually going to have 3:00 is when the movie starts. So if you want to live stream it with everybody, pop on BVS Ultimate Edition at 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern. Soon as that is done, soon as the 3.5 hour long movie and some change is completed, then live on Vero, and I believe Vero also has a YouTube affiliate link as well. If they don't, then they're going to just post it all on YouTube shortly after. But I watched it yesterday on Vero, and it was a lot of fun. So they'll go right into that. It's going to be a pretty late event, but probably no later than what tomorrow is going to do with the Zack Snyder's Justice League and then the Q&A. So we got a question just right off the bat. Of the entire Snyderverse, what was your favorite moment? Andy, what was your favorite moment of the entire Snyderverse?
I can pick one. Okay, that's hard.
Just one.
I mean, because I'm such a huge Flash fan, the Into the Speed Force, of course, will always, stand out to me because I remember because that's what Zack Snyder's Justice League was the first movie screener I ever got. So imagine just me sitting by myself, watching on my computer, and then this entire sequence happens, and because I love Barry Allen is obviously my Flash. So, but yeah, because listen, I love the TV show, but it was great for to see Flash just fully just getting a taste of his power. It was great. It was great to see just how powerful Barry really is, and just restoring the timeline. So that's and also the score. Come on, y'all! Favorite Oscar moment. So, yeah, that's my favorite moment in the Snyderverse, for sure.
The Flash sticks out with me too. That scene from Zack Snyder's Justice League where Flash goes outside and saves the girl and the car is flipping and everything gets really slow motion. There's such a weight to all of that. When we watch these movies, we're not only watching our heroes, but we want to know what it's like to be them. And we got to see that moment of what you get to experience in the eye of the hurricane, which you and me will never get to be. Only Helen Hunt got to do it that one time in Twister, right? And that ruined her. I mean, an F5 killed her whole family. So, I mean, it's a very difficult thing. But to see that moment, to feel that really sticks out to me. And then also the scene where what is the emissaries guy's name? And he gets the fully redesign. When he goes and attacks Wonder Woman's mom.
Oh, Steppenwolf, when he pops in for the first time.
Again, when I saw the new Steppenwolf, and I was like, oh, what a great design. And then you see that scene, and it's so much different than the first one. There's such a weightiness to all of it. Again, it was one of those like, oh, what a great sequence. That's way better than that other one we saw. Like, I can't believe so much was lost in translation. Both of those moments really stand out to me.
So, I mean, obviously we'll ask everyone who does come on, because we do have a couple other people that are going to try to pop in as well. But I think I've had a few. I mean, yesterday, my wife and I, we sat down and we watched Man of Steel, and it definitely, in hindsight and retrospect, is still an absolutely wonderful film, and I loved it. I mean, I said it before on multiple avenues about why Man of Steel is such an important movie for me. But I think the best thing that I can always bring up is what we actually posted on the Cultured Nerd just yesterday. It was our big tribute to the Snyderverse post, and it was by one of our writers, Kenneth Yambo, and he did the Cultured Nerd retrospective. And if anyone does want to see it, by all means, check it out. It's pretty just straightforward. Cultured Nerd, Cultured Retrospective. It's on the front page. Very simple. But in the lead up to this event, we did kind of like everyone got together. We all talked about what we liked and what we didn't like, and we kind of just put this big article together, kind of recapping the whole event. In the end of it, I did provide they asked everyone for a quote, how they felt about the Snyder franchise as a whole, right? And some of the quotes were a little short. Some of our writers were like, "Oh, this is this," and then mine ended up being kind of like a short essay, right? And it's better just to kind of to pull it up and just kind of read it to everyone, because I do want to kind of like, it perfectly encapsulates what I felt about the Snyder franchise. And I put it in here. It's hard sometimes to put my feelings of the Snyderverse into words. I was there from the beginning. I saw Man of Steel, BVS, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, and even Justice League in their midnight showings. But there's always a bit more for it to me than just showing up. I think back to my first viewing of Man of Steel. When I was a teenager, I found out my dad wasn't actually my biological father, and that he adopted me when I was a toddler. Looking back, I guess this happens to a lot of people, but for me, it hit me harder than I could have possibly described. My world was shattered. I'd already felt different in my own home at times. And kind of a side note, to be fair, I do feel very different from my siblings, because as Michael knows, both of my siblings are very blonde and I'm not. So that was a big thing. Where's I at? I already felt different in my own home at times, but hearing that I had no blood connection to my dad seemed to hit me in a way that sent me into a spiral. When my dad finally sat me down to talk about it, he told me plainly that it didn't matter because he loved me. After a long talk, I finally broke down in crying, saying to him that I wish we could just go back in time before I knew, and I wish we could just go back pretending that I was his son, and then left it at that. He stopped me right there and told me that no matter what, I was his son, and that nothing in this world would ever change that. Years later, I was married with a stepson of my own, and I sat in the theater and watched Man of Steel with my wife and son, and I saw that scene and it hit me right to my core. Everything I'd experienced right there on screen, the feelings swelled up inside me, and I started to cry. Because the relationship with my dad, I knew how I could be a real dad to my stepson. So that scene alone in Man of Steel hit me harder than I thought any superhero movie could. And then Man of Steel happened. I saw one man turn to darkness after feelings of helplessness, and another man question everything he was doing due to the pressures and scrutiny of the world around him. And in the end of it, I saw the heart of a broken man mend, and the other finding his purpose. And "you are my world" is a phrase that I know all too well as any parent. It perfectly encapsulates the complete love and devotion that you can have for one another. To see Superman say it in his last words was beautiful. Honestly, there are so many things that make the Snyderverse memorable for me, but as always, it's the little things that hit the hardest for me. So that was my little 2 cents on this whole thing. And those 2 scenes alone, the "You Are My World" and "You Are My Son," there'll always be big moments for me just because of what they are. And I broke Andy. Sorry.
Yes.
It's powerful stuff. I mean, you're talking, you're connecting these things on a much deeper level than I liked a fight scene or I liked the music. I mean, these are archetypes that also exist in our own lives that,
They are
representing you. And
I say it like I was a huge Zack Snyder fan when I first saw 300. I liked, I loved Watchmen. I loved the director's cuts. I loved all of those projects he did. And then when he made Superman, I admit I was a little hesitant because his style was very much like, it's kind of hard to put into words. I always used to think that Zack Snyder's style was like how Michael Bay's style, Zack Snyder was style and substance together. It was very flashy. It was very unique. It was very hard to truly describe Zack Snyder's style as a whole. And then jumping into it, I mean, I'm a huge comic book reader. I'm a huge fan of this comics. And I remember when I was reading Secret Origin, I believe it was, when they had that line, the "You Are My Son." I think it was Secret Origins, or was it Earth 1 Superman? It was one of those two. I remember reading both of those books, having that moment, and it hitting me really hard. And then when I saw that moment was almost verbatim lifted into the film, it hit me pretty hard. And even last night, watching it again, I love this movie unequivocally. It is just a beautiful movie. It's one of those films that it is divisive. It is. But the whole point of the film, and I always said the whole point of Man of Steel is showing that, yes, Superman is this all-powerful, this all-everywhere, this all-encompassing super icon. But we're seeing him faced with choices that he as a man has never had before. In the scene in Superman 78, when you had Pa Kent die of a heart attack on the farm, Superman felt powerless because with all my powers, all my strength, I couldn't do anything, right? But what Zack Snyder did was something very different. It was having John Kent die in the tornado, saying, "Stop, wait." That wasn't a scene that Superman could have stopped. He could have saved him. He could have used his powers. He could have done everything. But what he was faced with was the choice. And that was the one thing that Superman never really had in some of those older interpretations of his father dying, was that he could choose to save someone, or he could choose to trust someone. And that was something that was even explained at the end of the movie when he was fighting Zod. He could have done so many different things in that fight with Zod, but he made the choice to make the impossible decision of stopping someone to save someone else and taking a life, crossing a line that Superman has done before in almost every movie, right? Has done before countless times. But having to see him grapple with the choice and then having to deal with the fact that he had it, right? I mean, I saw the scene last night. He snaps Zod's neck. Zod's body hits the ground. Lois is standing there, and then he screams this primal scream, and then he's crying. Like, Superman is actually crying there, and that's when Lois comes up to hug him. Like, Superman crossed the line, and it broke him. It's honestly,
well,
the whole movie's about choice.
Yeah,
right.
And it's also, it's funny because you're also talking about him choosing a different lifestyle than what his blood or DNA is, because Zod is telling him this is the way you should be, of which he rejects, but then unfortunately has to embrace to overcome Zod. You know what I mean? It is the first, but it's also seeing Superman putting what the stakes are. And also I would assume that he considers this a mistake, right? Because we see the way that he then handles things moving forward and handles things, makes more mistakes. Batman v Superman, he makes a terrible mistake by showing up to Congress. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to see these things play out again.
Yeah. And that's always been the unique thing about Zack Snyder's movies. It's about the repercussions of choice and living with those choices, right? And throughout each of these movies, it was always been choice. I mean, first movie, he chose to step out and be Superman. His father told him not to. His biological father said, your job is essentially to be the emissary of two species. You're not supposed to save everyone. You're supposed to be like a bridge, right? And then he chose to essentially be the savior, right? And then in BVS, you saw some of the actions of his choices. He unilaterally saves everyone. It gets involved in conflicts that he politically and legally shouldn't be, but he does. And he deals with the repercussions of his choices. He deals with the people on the news criticizing his choices, criticizing his actions, saying, if you're American, just save Americans, if you're like, etc. And then the choice, again, stepping away, stepping back in, and then at the end, choosing to sacrifice his life for the one thing that matters to him, is love, the person that matters. And he knows, obviously, if he doesn't stop Doomsday, the world's going to be destroyed, right? But he made the single choice and narrowed it down, just like his mother said to him, that make the world small and then everything will be okay, right? He made the world small. He said, Lois, you are my world, made the choice, and then died making that choice. And then he comes back and then chooses again to come back into the light and save the world, right? It's all about choice. He doesn't have to make these choices, but he still makes them. And that's what made him Superman.
I add something? It also honors what, the words that Jor-El said in, Man of Steel with, what if a child dreamed of becoming something other than what society had intended? Instead of like having to live up to anyone else's expectations, Clark, he sits on his own path, like you said, Taylor, like he is the bridge, but also the embodiment of choice, of because he wants humanity to be what the best that it can be, so that's why he serves as inspiration for the world. So yeah, it's like again, for people who say like Zack Snyder never had a plan, you need to watch, maybe put on the subtitles and listen to what they're saying in the dialogue, because there's so much foundation for what what they do throughout all these three movies.
Look at any of the billboards, look at the different license plates. They're world building all over the place and splashing in things of an entire world that we only got to touch on in very little regard later on.
Right. to have so much in that, this is why I'm always fascinated with filmmakers, whether it be Zack Snyder or Chris Terrio or David Goyer, who were all part of helping craft this world. Like for me, it's just like the fact that they were managed able to come up with so much so early, and the fact that you look at all these films, like none of these films feel like an afterthought. Like they feel like it feels like because I'm a married television guy, and this to me is like Zack Snyder would probably be like the ultimate showrunner, like for something where usually when you go into a network you have to pitch a 5-season plan or something. That doesn't mean you're gonna get 5 seasons, but hey, tell us what your vision is. And it's like Zack is like, this is like, again, like watch. This is really why I wish that the Snyder Cut had to be able to come out as like a 6-part thing weekly. But yeah,
Andy, I think, but you just said a really great point. None of this fills last minute or we'll fix it in post or willy-nilly. This is all very thought out. There's so much attention to detail, attention to details to shots, attention to detail to camera movements, especially when Taylor's talking about style. You might not think that there is a style there, or you might think of the, I don't know, he makes anime statues in movies, right? He makes like a gorgeous anime tableau with lightning, and then we get to continue into it. But you see his evolution, because even that is not played. You don't run into those Zack Snyder tropes in these movies. They are appropriate for these characters in time. Yeah, it's not phoned in at all, and there's definitely style and substance there.
So I'm going to bring in another one of our guests. Prime is going to pop in. Prime. So we were all talking about our favorite moments from Zack Snyder's body of work. What's your favorite Zack Snyder trilogy moment? It's a hard one. Yeah.
But it's so many of them. But if I have to go with the top, it's the introduction of the Trinity.
The big moment in BVS when they're all standing there together and the
introduction of the Trinity. The reason why I say that is because you have to remember, you never seen the Trinity on live action on screen. You never got that.
Right.
This is Wonder Woman's first appearance in live action on the movie screen. Okay.
Yeah.
Now you actually have all three of them. You have all three the main pillars of DC right in front of you in this movie where they're going to transition and make this universe from these three and where it's going to build off of. Now, did it transition the way that we expected it to be? To an extent, yes. But with all the interference and then with them chopping everything, we just didn't get it. But at least that we got to see that. That was my moment. See, when I first saw the Trinity, I cried when I saw BBS. Even though a lot of people cheered, I was crying with joyful emotion because I'm seeing the Trinity on screen. So when you actually look at it, it's something that's surreal. So you have to look at that's how I look at it. Some people relate with it, some people don't, and that's fine. But me personally, with me being a hardcore DC fan, that was it for me. I got so many great moments in the Snyderverse, but that's the top. That's the top. The introduction of the
and honestly, I know a lot of people at the time when the movie came out, Wonder Woman's soundtrack was either, oh my gosh, that's badass, or okay, that's a little much. But seeing this shot on this theater on the big screen for the first time, I mean, everyone in their mind has this image of Wonder Woman being like Linda Carter and kind of campy and very 70s. And then you see her pop out with a shield and sword and is like, I'm going to cut this dude's head off. And you're like, okay, this is different. This is Wonder Woman in like the vibe of 300. Like she is a warrior from the
Is she with you? I thought she was with you.
Like,
but
and it's such a
also
funny
establishing
dynamic.
her, right? But also like Batman has his qualms and Superman his qualms about things. Wonder Woman will cut a bitch. She knows exactly what she is here to do. She is here to protect the Earth because there is an island of women that are very important to her. She's not here to mess around with any of this stuff. And I loved that dynamic of it because you see how calculated Batman is in things, and you see Superman. No, Wonder Woman's ready to go punch somebody in the face.
I loved every bit of her initial like introduction. I mean, her introduction was something that was just truly unique and special. I mean, in the early parts of the movie, when you see her show up, you get these little like, oh, okay, who is she? Is she like you don't tell who she is, right? I mean, people who know the casting going into it, like, oh, that's Wonder Woman. Okay, cool. And then I think the first time they actually address her by any sort of name is when she's on the plane and they say Miss Prince, and people are like, wait, what? And like it kind of clicks, but you have that little reference, that little vibe where he makes this like reference-y joke about how I know a woman like you before, kind of like the Catwoman-y reference. But the moment she pops up on screen that very first time and just decimates it. But even then, like as the fight is going on, right? Like I loved how every time she's getting hit, every time she's getting knocked down, she is like jumping back in, and she's showing that she can go toe to toe with these characters. She's jumping out there. Okay, she's got thrown 100 feet. Yeah, and there's that one shot. I'm going to try to find a picture of it. I know a lot of people.
She's being challenged for the first time in a long time.
Right?
And, but the piggyback off of what you were saying about people seeing Wonder Woman for the first time and that depiction. I mean, if you really read comics, you understood which version that you was going to get. The general casual audience knows the actual Linda Carter version or the Justice League animation version of that magnitude. But the actual new, more advanced and more mature version, or the more Amazonian version of her, a lot of aficionados, we knew what we was getting. We know what was getting in, and the depiction of her was absolutely fantastic. I mean, but then that drew people into her as a character. So you have to,
it was so powerful. Prime, it was so powerful. It's the same narrative they're still going with. That TV show is swords and sandals. It's going to be SWAT, fighting in fields and stuff like that. Same reminiscent of what we got in Zack Snyder's Wonder Woman.
Swords and sandals.
No, I mean, we joke about it, but no, that's how ancient Greece was. I mean, everyone had those.
No, I know,
that went all the way up their thighs, and like, And this
He
is
just said it
ancient Greek time.
he just said it in a funny way. That's all.
There's a long line of like Jason and the Argonaut movies, right? There's a long line of these movies, and I think we're gonna get. I mean, I hope we get some of that. You know, there's a battle going over here, and then a Hydra shows up. You know what I mean? I think that stuff would fit very well in the narrative of film. I don't know how it'll translate to TV, but that is the Wonder Woman we get moving forward. She is a gladiator.
Heck, even the I forget the name of the company, but even the new video game, like it's obviously so like Zack Snyder's blueprint there.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm not sure if this will work, but I want to put it on anyways because I'm not sure how StreamYard works with GIFs and all that. But let's try it anyways. This is the shot that I'm referring to the most, where
when she on the ground and she crawling back and she's smiling.
Yeah, and a lot of people they turn it into a
smirk.
meme, right? Like they put it in this like, oh my body is ready kind of a thing. But let's see if it works. It works, yes. Right?
You can play games on screen.
Yeah, amazing, right? So
Oh my God.
bro.
This shot was one of my favorites, not because it was like, oh, it was a sexy shot or whatever. I love the fact that it showed that she was like, oh, I just got punched in the face. I'm having fun. Let's go fight. Like when that was the moment, I was laughing so hard because I'm like, he knocked her straight down and she's laughing because it didn't do a damn thing to her. I'm like, this is Wonder Woman. Here it is. Like, this is the character that is going to have fun with the sword fight. He's going to have fun fighting, who's from this warrior culture and now is like, oh, this is going to be great.
That was like the Themyscirian version of "Hold my beer." I'll be right back.
Right? Like that's what it felt like. It wasn't some like obviously was it like 6 or 7 years since? I don't know how long it's been. I'm terrible at math. However long it's been since that movie came out, it's become a meme. It's been like over sexualized or whatever. But to me, it was one of my favorite moments because I'm like, that's Wonder Woman in that show. Here we go. This is great.
Yeah, it's been 7 years since BVS came out. It's been 7 years. So it's like, and then people, crazy. Yeah, it's crazy because it seemed like yesterday when it actually came out. And another thing that a lot of people that I would say this as in the scene that's actually in BVS, and I don't think a lot of people actually picked it up, but it kind of made people actually see how the Trinity actually is. It made Batman vulnerable.
It did.
It made him vulnerable. If you go back and you watch it, you're really going to see that he can't do nothing. Okay?
Well,
he really can't. I mean, he contributed. Don't get me wrong, to help, but he only could do but so much. Like when Doomsday first shot the first shot, you saw Diana and Cal take it. Where did Bruce go? He went under that rock.
Yeah,
he had to. He was gonna get obliterated. Then when they started fighting, he had to hide. He couldn't do nothing. Yeah. It shows, and this is the thing that always gets me with people. They think Batman can do everything. He cannot. He's just a man. Now, he had the scene where he avoided Doomsday. That was sweet. It was absolutely beautiful. That's all he could do. Just get away. He's not going. He can't do nothing. Go ahead.
But it also it again. These are the things that you point out, Prime. This is why Batman is freaked out about all these superheroes and stuff like that, right? Because he realizes that normal people can't do anything. And it makes that mantle. Like if Superman is the bridge, the protector of Earth is Batman, as flimsy as he is, because he knows that, like, oh man, these are beings that can take a punch to the face and keep going. You know what I mean? And it makes him step up his game again.
It's like that scene earlier in the movie when Alfred is like, it turns to rage. He references all these things about like, he's like, the gods are now among man. The gods throw thunderbolts, and now you're going over the edge. I mean, Batman sees that he spent 20 years trying to clean up his city, and it didn't do much. Superman shows up one day, and the world is like, holy crap! Like, it dramatically changes it, and it
is crazy because people.
He looks at it and he's like, pick that out. He's like, damn. Okay, so I just wasted 20 years of my life, and if Superman is Superman, right, and then Batman is essentially the epitome of what man can be. He's like, I'm useless, right? And that's where that fight was so cool because he was literally zipping around, he was hiding, and he was trying to do the best he could to be involved. It was like watching Hawkeye fight the Hulk, right? He's like, it's not gonna happen, and he's just like, I'm gonna just get away. I'm gonna hide. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. And he helped as much as he could. I mean, he he ran some sort of an interference. He was a distraction for some points, and he had the kryptonite gas grenade that he was able to use. But it was such a refreshing scene because it wasn't like Batman, like you would expect in any other movie. Batman's like, I'm going to level the playing field, and he gets like some satellite comes out of nowhere and starts shooting it, or he gets a mech suit, he's fighting it like Iron Man. But like this was Batman, like I didn't prepare for this. Holy crap!
I should have studied more for the exam.
He's like, I prepared for Superman, but I don't know what the hell this thing is. And he's like, oh no, right? It was such a refreshing thing.
So I want to go back to something Brian was talking about when it comes to because like there is something powerful with seeing that Trinity. Because think about it, how often in fiction, how many iconic Trinities are there in fiction? Like they're like for example, like when we see Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman together, like that feeling, I never felt it when I saw Captain America and Iron Man and Thor together in Avengers. I was like, okay, this fight is stupid, but sure. But when these three came together, like again, we've all grown up with these characters in one different way or another. Like whether it's the Superman movies or Smallville, Batman animated series, Justice League, whatever. It's like we got to see these three come together. And that's why, like, I told like it may not have been one of my favorite, like my top favorite moment, but it's like, yeah, I can absolutely like see like how special this was, because again, it's like there aren't that many fictional trinities that could have such an emotional impact on one.
Harry Potter, Hermione, and Ron.
No,
The Three Musketeers plus D'Artagnan.
No,
but the fact that
the mask, the dog, and what's her name?
Let's see, that was her name.
There was a
Trinity
there
was
was a funny
memorable.
tweet from a few years ago, and I remember it was like the Kardashians or whatever, and they like put this like the three sisters, and they're like, name a better trio, I dare you. And like the first comment was the scene from BVS, and they're like, sorry.
I never thought Taylor and the Kardashians would ever be a combination I would see it in my life.
It was one of those super trending moments, and I saw it, but I hate the Kardashians. Like,
yeah, me too.
Everything that they stand for is what's wrong with this country.
Name a more classic duo than the Three Sisters.
Hold my beer.
That pretty much sums up, Michael, like a more classic duo than the Three Sisters. You pretty much nailed how intelligent they are. So before we jump more into the discussion, I want to, again, for those of you tuning in, for those of you watching, head over to supporting.afsp.org/campaign FullCircle. I'll post up links again. We're still running with the same FullCircle fundraiser giveaway. The goal was 3,000. As of this second, it is closing up on 20K, which is pretty fantastic. For those who have been following all week, the giveaway is still in effect, right? You donate $1, you can be entered in to win a poster. You donate $10, you get entered in to win a replica of Man of Steel's Superman ship. 25, the OST. And for those wondering, the OST is the big 7-disc, 7-vinyl record box set signed by Zach. Another fantastic one. $50, you get the Batman v Superman Batmobile signed by Zach. $100, you get you could get the exclusive statue as seen in the poster. So donate what you can, support the AFSP. Let's get these numbers up. We've already crossed $1 million. We're going to cross even more by the end of this weekend, but everything for Zach and Co. And for those of you who are watching it at home and can't type as fast as that, because it is a pretty lengthy quote, go ahead, scan that QR code. It'll take you right to it. So I'll keep throwing these up periodically, but this is the point of today, is raising money for the AFSP.
Amen.
And with it, probably about the halfway mark of the show, maybe about 10 minutes or so, I did get an announcement of a winner that for one of the posters that I'm going to announce live for everyone. So we'll do that in about 15 minutes. But those of you who, like I said, this is going to keep going all weekend, keep at it, keep donating. I donated again just because why not? And anyone who wants to do it, go for it. But we got some more people popping in the show. We've got the Bat Channel. They were the ones who actually were in the show previous to us. They led into this one, so fantastic. Hey guys, thanks for joining. Yep, what's up? Wonder Anna, always supporting what we say. She's the best. Just someone who popped in right now, just got here. What are we doing? We're talking about Zack Snyder's franchise, right? His 10-year run with the DC characters, 3 films, and everything that they did, and how much they all meant to us. So it is it's a fun conversation. So anyone wants to bring anything up, anyone wants to talk about anything, throw it in the chat, throw it in the comments. I'll bring it up and we'll talk about it. We'll definitely bring into it. But as we know, Zack had a huge plan from the get-go. It's a shame we're not going to see the end of it, but what we did get with the conclusion of his trilogy, with the release of Zack Snyder's Justice League, we got something that quite literally never happens in Hollywood, right? We got a guy who was ousted by a studio, whose original work was put into storage, never to be seen again, and the fans willed it back to life. And we gave a man who was in pain of the loss of his daughter, we gave him closure. We gave him this cathartic release. Okay, next one. When does the next panel go live? I'm confused. Is he coming on in here? So the next panel is actually very late tonight. So that's the reality. So today is our. Oh, did we lose Michael?
Yeah, he lagged out for a minute.
You're back. We lost you.
I'm here. I'm going to go get more coffee. I'll be right back.
Okay. So we're going to be running this for about 90 minutes, but the panel for today started earlier this morning. Bat Channel was right before us, and we now are going to be leading into the streaming of BVS. So after we're done at 3 o'clock, get your DVDs ready, get your Blu-rays ready, get everything, your streaming, your HBO Max, whatever you watch the show on, hit play on BVS, and then following BVS is the live stream of the Q&A session. And then after that, after the Q&A session is done, around 8:30 Pacific time, ACS Universe goes live, and then after that, there's another show around the same time for our Latino followers. So it is a long event today.
Wait a minute. I'm trying to think. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because it will be 9:15 here when it starts.
Yep.
I mean the Q&A, but the actual movie starting is going to start at
3.
At 3, yeah, 3:50.
At 3, yeah. And the movie's like 3.5 hours long, so by the time the Q&A is set to start at 6:15, so maybe if they run on time accordingly, maybe they'll kind of bleed into it a little bit, but maybe they'll just say, whatever. and
Yeah,
we'll go on to Vero, we'll start the live show, and then we'll just wait 20 minutes, and then we'll go from there. But just like yesterday, during the screening of the film itself, Zack is on stage with people kind of just discussing the movie, kind of like a live commentary. So there is still a lot going on. But the next question that just popped up, do you think he'll make an official statement saying he's moving on? I don't think Zack will outright say it, but I do feel like Zack has always been the kind of person that will say if the opportunity presents itself, then maybe, we'll make it happen. But at the same time, Michael, you back? You ready? He's back. At the same time, I think that the fact that he's working around the clock for Netflix should be a good telltale sign. And then a lot of the videos that came about from yesterday, someone did ask about the Sell the Snyderverse campaign, and he politely shut them down, saying that he has his own plans going forward, and fans clearly have their own. But he is very happy with the world he's doing. One of these comments pop up. Will Netflix will get Justice League 2? No, Netflix will never get Justice League 2. That's the reality. Not trying to break anybody's hearts or anything, but the studio has already said no. They're not going to do it.
I mean, it's technically not breaking no hearts. It's just that a lot of people basically want things and don't understand the actual the heart of the matter on how these things are constructed. They don't want to look at that. So it's not breaking nobody's heart. If you're not willing to look at the business side of how things are orchestrated, is constructed and put together, and then to understand everything, you're just making yourself, how should I say, just to be nice. I'm not going to be strictly hard, but you're making yourself you're not painting yourself in a good light. Let's put it like that.
Yeah.
So
and to kind of get away from the negative, I mean, we're not here to talk about the future, to speculate what could and should and all that could happen. I want to just celebrate Zach's work and raise money for the AFSP. I think that's the more important thing.
Can I
another
add
question
something?
that did pop up? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, even if it's not continuing, we will always be able to relive all of this. All the you will be able to have all the movies on home release or on streaming for HBO Max or whatever. So that's the thing. Like, just because we're not getting more, it doesn't erase anything that has come before. Like, we have 3 incredible movies and all these events and what people have done for AFSP and everything. So I think that's something that needs to be highlighted.
And we did get another comment, just kind of like another question, just kind of off on a different direction to kind of help steer us away. Do you think, hold on, I just popped it. Do you think Jonathan Major will jump ship to DCU? And who do you think if he does? With everything that's happening with Majors behind the scene, there's always that strong possibility that Marvel may end up dumping him, which is unfortunate. But if he does, a few people did pop up on my last Q&A during this past week and brought up the same question. Jonathan Majors would make a fantastic John Stewart Green Lantern. I think he honestly would. He would make a fantastic Black Lightning for cinematics. There's so many characters that he would actually do very well at. And I honestly, my point, I think honestly John Stewart. That's my vote if he does end up jumping to DC. But see some other questions that are popping up. Another statement. One of the things I love about BVS is that it focused on the divisive nature of Superman's existence. The film in itself was divisive, which kind of proved the point of the film. It did. Exactly. Like, everyone likes the idea of Superman, but everyone has a different view of what Superman is and what he should be. And you have people who will always say, oh, Superman should have the trunks. He should be saving cats out of trees. He should be doing this and that. And then we had that movie, and it bombed. And then that movie bombed, and that movie said, I want Superman to be this. And then when the studio gave us that movie, they're like, no, we want the other movie. But they still didn't show up for that movie either. Superman, as a character, is extremely divisive.
Well, Man of Steel was already putting into place narratives that we see in shows like The Boys, right? Yeah. Where one character, the superhero, saved their family. The other character's dad died because a car fell on him or a building fell on them. And that's what Bruce Wayne saw when Superman showed up. You know what I mean? He saw a bunch of debris falling all over the place that traumatized him.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And he's already pretty messed up and traumatized as it is.
I mean, the fact that every scene in the movie going forward where he is dreaming and having his nightmares, the dream opens with the sound of the World Engine, right? Like that Black Zero event, the World Engine, that literally was trauma. And it used the auditory cue of that sound to say traumatized, PTSD. And that's why he was getting angrier and angrier, probably because he wasn't sleeping as much, because every time he did sleep, he was seeing nightmares and visions of death and despair. So yeah, Batman was going off the deep end because of trauma. And
this is all classic Batman stuff. Batman always is a problem. He never gets enough sleep. He goes over the line sometimes. He's got to pull it back. He's a work in progress. He's just a human being.
Yeah, a very
as my sister always says, Batman is the number one candidate for therapy that is needed. Listen, my sister loves Batman, but she'll be like, boy, do you know how many of these problems will be solved if he just went to therapy? I'm like,
he solves therapy with his fist.
Therapy.
Yeah. He teaches bad guys a lesson. This is what my feelings are. This is what I feel like.
I'm confronting my demons by punching that guy in the face. Yeah.
Let me prescribe you this.
But let's see. I'm just kind of reading through some of the stuff here. This is a fun one. Did Zach plan on doing more movies before doing BVS, or was that always sort of the plan? So as we know from behind the scenes, BVS was kind of the studio's direction. He originally wanted to make a direct sequel with Man of Steel. There was also some concept art of Metallo and a few other things, but he always wanted to include Batman going forward. But the idea of turning it into Dawn of Justice and setting up the Justice League so quickly, he did want to do more. And I personally would have loved the idea of him having them cross paths or Easter eggs here and there, and then like a solo Batman movie, then BVS, and then everything kind of set up from there. But the studio at the time was in a rush to compete with Marvel, which was already in its phase 2, and clearly them rushing the game didn't work.
Wait, you're telling me that studio executives aren't filmmakers?
No, they are terrible. There's so many stories from behind the scenes about how one of the many reasons why Tim Burton's Superman movie died was because of the committee that was basically saying, oh, how are we going to sell merchandise? How are we going to sell this? How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? And then it became so much of a headache that you couldn't have any artistic people make artistic films without having to appease toy makers and clothing makers and everything.
And that's exactly what happened to Batman Forever and the Batman and Robin. I mean, you know, we shit on those movies now, but when you talk to all the people behind the scenes, they were all like, I did my job. They told me to make toys. They told me to design something they can make toys off of. And that's what we did.
Michael, you were like in 3rd or 4th grade. And I remember us seeing those movies and being like, this is fun. And then in hindsight, we're like, wow, it wasn't fun.
Batman Forever was fantastic. Jim Carrey was never fun. He was the funniest person on the planet. And now he gets to be a funny bad guy. No, it was right up my alley.
Taylor, that concept art of Metallo, is that out there in the public, or is it kind of just things that you've been able to see?
No, it's out there.
Okay, because I never knew about this.
Show us Metallo.
Okay, let me find. There was a few different ones that popped up.
I have a question. Was any of the story that was in BVS, was any of that supposed to be in Man of Steel 2?
Yeah. I mean, the Metallo stuff. Metallo was supposed to be Wallace O'Keefe, the guy who lost his legs. So that was definitely stuff that they were doing.
I remember in the movie when I was watching BBS, and when he said Wally. Sorry.
Here's one of the first concept arts of Metallo during his experimenting phase. Let me grab it. There we go. When he was being obviously legless, being strapped up to the machine, and here is
Michael Fassbender.
Post. Maybe. I mean, they used a lot of stuff like that where they were just like, this could be.
Why am I thinking of Brainiac when I see this?
The helmet.
You'll get more vibes of it very quickly when you see the other final run of Metallo. So in the film, he was supposed to basically like assimilate machines as he came in contact with them, kind of like a Borg or whatnot. But he eventually would be this monstrosity of like guns and plane parts and stuff.
What the hell?
Would there be a B villain as well in addition to Metallo?
Oh, he was kind of the B villain with Lex being the mastermind, but that was still a big thing. Yeah,
I mean
that's very cool.
That look, that ain't no B villain. That is wow. Wow, that looks phenomenal. I kind of wish we'd had Metallo now in the film somehow.
Yeah, there was a lot of fun little things behind the scenes. But let me go through some of these other questions. We got some. My fan casting for Jonathan Majors as DC's Lex Luthor. That might be interesting. Might be a very interesting take on him. I'd like that.
It honors something that because I don't know if you guys thought about this when you guys were growing up, but like Superman the animated series, their Lex was drawn very ethnically ambiguous. So for me, like I always imagine Lex as like a black man. So which is why like when they initially had on Superman Low was when Wally Parks initially when we thought he was playing Captain Luthor, I'm like, oh, we're finally getting that. But now, of course, he's amazing as Steel. But like, yeah, I would love to see a black Lex Luthor somewhere.
Right, let's see. Do you think Zach would be interested in concluding his story?
Totally agree with.
I do. I think that if James Gunn said, hey, we want to wrap up your story in animated form, he, as well as the rest of the cast, would 100% be on board. There's no way about it. I mean, it is probably the easiest and most practical solution.
Yep.
Because you could get every one of the cast members to record their dialogue at any time.
and it's
and they wouldn't have
financially.
to get in a superhero shape. Yeah, that would be the best approach. I would love the crap out of that. I'd buy it. I would plaster it everywhere. Like,
We'll take it one step further.
Or do it in comic format as well. So
no, I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
this would be the more satisfying conclusion, but comic format is like
It-
the last way. I'd be like, yeah, if we have to get only one way, okay, I'll take it. But
And Zack
Or
Snyder
both.
draws.
You could do
Yeah,
both.
well, he draws
You know?
all of his own storyboards. It literally would be his movie if they animate it. Like
But-
1-to-1 would be his movie.
I would literally say, because I've stated this plenty of times. Which is it's the more probable way to go animation, but we already know the type of design that he will actually utilize for the animation. We know what type of style animation that he will actually utilize if he does go to animation. You know,
so
if people don't know what it is was in Teen Titans Go when they did the Zack Snyder series. So
That was so
which type of
good.
style they use.
So Zach is notorious for drawing everything that he does
Yes, he
and
does.
wanting his film to match the drawings. Like that's how he does his stuff, right? So, I mean, yeah, you look at this like, oh, that's an art major. That's a guy who, no, like obviously, if you're gonna do your script and do like 3,000 like individual blocks, yeah, you would find the easiest way to cut corners. Yeah, 100%. But Zach is known for being actually he went to art school. Like he went to Europe to art school and then became a director separately. Like it was like he went there and they're like, hey, do you ever think about directing movies? And he's like, yeah, I guess. And then it kind of like segued his whole life from there.
Is that the Deathstroke sequence?
That's the Deathstroke sequence, yeah. But he's also the fact that he's on his iPad modifying the storyboards, wearing Batman's gloves is pretty great. So, but
Just wanted to keep his hands warm.
An animated movie or like animated show would be so cool, especially because now that Max is getting back into doing more animation, like this would be great. I mean, again, I also am a fan of the idea of doing a graphic novel, like maybe like a big omnibus or something to kind of finish it up. Especially these days when they're doing all the Black Label stuff. So, but yeah, like for me, like I've kind of like again, I love the Snyderverse, and if it came back as movies, I would of course be happy. But I've kind of accepted if I were probably not get those movies. So, if anything, these two out of medium, also because we need some more animation stuff. Like, come on, like I feel like so much is just focused on live action these days, and I'm like we need like I want another good DC animated show since we're not getting any more Young Justice.
I mean, we're getting the
animated
My
show
Adventure
or
with Superman on Adult Swim in a few months. We're getting Batman Cape Crusader on Amazon Prime next year. So like we're getting a lot of stuff coming out. So we're gonna get some cool stuff.
But we can always
some
have
of the other
more,
stuff that came
Taylor.
What?
We could always have more animation.
No, we should always have more. We should have 100% more. Another question: which Lex Luthor was in that movie? Such as BVS, Dawn of Justice, was Alex Luthor Jr. or Lex Luthor Sr. in that film? The idea, Zach's plan was always to have Lex Jr. He loved that idea. He thought that was fantastic, and the ambiguity of there being an older, more evil Lex Luthor out there was always a fun concept, but I don't think they ever wanted to make that be the front and center of Lex.
It's like the Wayland Corporation, right? Like there's always Wayland somewhere in the background. This is just the guy we're dealing with right now.
Yeah. Which one of the Waylands are we fighting today? There's a lot of them, apparently. For those who don't reference, that's a deep cut Aliens franchise reference. And Blade Runner as well, because Blade Runner also canonized itself in the Alien universe.
They're all connected.
Yep.
Right.
Ridley Scott is Ridley Scott.
Am I froze? Did I freeze?
This is a fun one. How about AI? That would be very interesting. Maybe in a few years we could see fans make an AI version of this if they wanted to, but I think Zach he's more of a traditional filmmaker. He would prefer animation over a computer following prompts and making very weird representations of his actors and crew.
Did I freeze?
No.
Oh, it didn't. Oh, what I was saying is that the Lex that he was talking about, if you want to know a little bit more about which Lex that he actually used from source material, read Superman Birthright, because the reason why he utilized that
Lex on.
Right. Yeah. If you want to know a little bit more, and the reason why he used that Lex in this actual generation, in this actual time, he's portraying a Paranthropus. Did I say the word right?
That's a good
So that's
$5
what he's
word.
portraying and the way that his demeanor is. So yeah, he is the child of the senior of Lex Lex Senior. I mean, he's the son of Lex Senior. But if you really want to know more about that character, read Superman Birthright, and you'll get a completely perfect example of where it is and where it came from.
I'm getting a lot of these comments about this. If they do an animation, could they do 3D animation? So we actually talked about this on Wednesday, and I want to bring this up again because the style that Zach is doing for his Army of the Dead prequel series it's very cool. It's very unique. But when I saw it, I saw a quick little snippet of it, and it looked a lot like Netflix's Arcane, which is a cross between 3D animation and a very stylized animation look. I could see Zach 1000% use this for his a concluding project. That would be like, it would make so much sense to me.
Yeah,
because it's not like childish animation.
It's an animation style that the Into the Spider-Verse kind of perfected, but it is 3D models with hand-drawn facial expressions. And it's what gives it that sort of claymation to look to it sometimes. They also animate on the ones, which allows, it's more drawing they have to do, but it really gets amazing stuff out there. I think it's such an unexplored world. I think whatever they want to do, it's lots of great possibilities.
I mean, that style is okay. I mean, that style is okay with the 3D look, but it doesn't look serious. It looks cartoonish. It looks playful.
So
now, if
you
go
look, there is a
more,
picture of it online. Cool. So here is what Zach is doing with his Army of the Dead animated series. I like how people found it and like cleaned it up. Good for them. There was Zach had leaked a photo kind of like on one of his streams, and someone took the photo and cleaned it up and made it look better. And this is why I keep saying that the style for Arcane is very reminiscent of that, because Arcane is obviously that style based on the animated style from like the video game that it's from, but this is what he's doing with the Army of the Dead stuff.
Holy!
So it is CGI, but it's also still animated. And we lost Prime again, but that's what I could see him doing. His franchise with somewhere across between these two styles. So we got some more questions popping in. Say they did revive the Snyderverse. Do you think Zach, the jail sequel Zach made, would be a box office success? Before I thought so, but Black Adam made me rethink. I think that's why the conversation of bringing it back hasn't really been taken seriously, to be honest. We've talked about this before. Zack Snyder's BVS did not make its money back in theaters, and Zach even said on his meeting with the Russos that BVS made all of its profits from the home video release. Zach's movies have a very specific group of fans, and they are very ride or die. They will show up, they will be there, but general audiences aren't the same way. So having to find a way to get general audiences to also show up would be tricky. So I think that the animation approach would be the most cost-effective way to not only get the fans on board, but to also give that story its way to breathe. So
can I add something to that?
Yeah.
And I think I don't think that's to say that that having something like it put on HBO Max is somehow like he's not worthy of he's not a theatrical filmmaker, he's not worthy of the theatrical treatment and so on. Like streaming is just as powerful and just as meaningful, and also I think also more accessible, because like some there's some countries that some movies won't even be shown in the theaters, but they will have it on streaming. And like that will give more people an opportunity to see these properties. So like I don't necessarily think it would be a box office success if they did a sequel, but like I think if it was on streaming, like Saginaw Justice League was, it would definitely be a success. And that's something that profits the studios too.
Yeah. So I mean, animation is a very unique experience because budgets are very different.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I can pull up.
I also just don't think you can do an adult animated movie and have it be successful in a theater. You know,
Yeah.
I look at the box office numbers from, you know, the number one show in Japan. It'll come here in the States. It'll do $5 million. You know what I mean? And unless you're doing a kids movie, you know what I mean? Mario, the new Mario movie had a very high budget for an animated movie, and it did very well. But it's a very niche market that's seeing that, and I don't know who would
But
want
it's
to
also
see.
going to be breaking $1 billion this weekend. So
Right, but I don't know.
really?
But I don't know
Wow.
who the audience is for a rated R cartoon, because
Right.
that's what it would be.
So, I mean, look at it this way. So, animation, I mean, to finish Zack Snyder's project in film, you're looking probably about 300, maybe 400 million to finish everything on film in live action. However, I'm pulling up some stand-up numbers. The Disney's The Lion King, their photorealistic animated show that they did, was about 200 million to do that, and that was photorealism CGI. Netflix's Arcane only cost them 90 million for the entire season.
Damn.
So if Zach was to do his story in animation in a non-hyper realistic style and do it as like a mini series, you could get the whole project done in about $150 million in animation.
That's such a huge budget, though, as well.
Yeah.
I mean, just
Yeah.
hearing that number, that's so big.
Versus 2 movies that would probably like.
But you can also recoup a lot of that stuff. Because if Warner Brothers were to take it on, right? If they were to do this and that, I mean, you have your partnerships with McFarlane Toys, you can get statues, all that stuff. Hot Toys would be marketing their stuff for it. Fans will show up,
Funkos,
like they always do. You could limited release some of the episodes or even the project in some theaters and make 10 or 15 million. I mean, when Zach did his Army of the Dead, let me see, Army of the Dead theatrical, right? He did a theatrical box office, like a limited release. A buddy of mine saw it a few days before the show even came out. Army of the Dead actually made some money in theaters like 5 days before they did. Yeah, it made $1 million in the box office on just random showings during the pandemic. And then physical media. I mean, if they release it as a box set, people will buy the crap out of that. The fact that Zack Snyder's Justice League, BVS, and all those are still within the top 20 sales on most platforms, still, it tells you that there's still a market for these things. So
no,
animation would be the best approach, in my opinion. And people will show up for it.
and if it is an anime show, that would be that would be amazing. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, if Zach did it as, I mean, he essentially described 2 parts of Justice League, so a minimum of 4 to 5 hours of content. And if you do it as a mini series, you could do 8 episodes and call it good, right? And it'd be fantastic. Everyone will tune in. Everyone will love it. Like, that would be the approach. Don't see Zach tomorrow announcing that he's returning, but if anything, if he says anything about this, about animation, 100% I'm there. But
yeah.
While we're still wrapping up, we're on our first hour. We got about 27 minutes left until it's time to start watching the movie. So we're going to bring up the winner of the poster. So for the donation poster, again, fans who go to the AFSP's website and donates, if they go through the fundraiser, at minimum, if you donate $1 or if you donate anything, right, you're in. It's kind of like a tiered system. If you donate $50, you're in the running for the first 4 tiers. $100, you're in for all 5 tiers, etc. We have a winner for the signed poster from Zack Snyder, and that's the poster of the Man of Steel statue. Dalbor Sivan, I'm going to butcher his name, I'm sorry, won a poster. Thank you for the amazing movies. I wish you all the best. He donated $15 to the AFSP, won himself a poster, and the organizers of this FullCircle event will actually be reaching out to him shortly. So don't close off your DMs or anything if you are.
Now's not the time. Now's not
Yeah, keep those DMs open.
I mean, you can always do what most people do and then put your DMs on like, I will do this on a permission basis, and I can preview the message before I accept the message. That's the best approach, right? That's the best approach.
No, open
But,
yourself up to the universe. Let people flood those DMs with whatever they want.
Oh yeah, that's the best approach. Let everyone in.
Taylor, are you
We
wearing
got
your
a bunch
dark
of stuff
side?
right off the bat. I am. Wear my dark side shirt. I mean, yeah, on Wednesday I was wearing my BVS, my Zack Snyder hoodie, but it's like 90 degrees today, and even with my AC on, I'm not wearing it.
No, I get it.
So it's a warm day. How do we show? It's a cool one. How do we show that Warner Brothers we are interested in animation? In other words, how can we, as fans, help get this conversation started? I think that is probably the best approach. I've tweeted before, make the Snyderverse animated. That's been something that I've always approached to because pragmatically it makes the most sense. But I think healthy use of Twitter and social media and campaigns is always the best approach. I mean, the biggest thing that deterred fans of the movement was when a small, very outspoken group of fans decided to do the fire James Gunn stuff, sell the Snyderverse Netflix stuff. Like that stuff does not help the studio think that it's a good idea to continue. But if you say, hey, I'm not boycotting Warner Brothers, I'm not boycotting what you're doing, but I still want this, boycotts don't work. Okay, like I always say this, like in the realm of theaters and movies and studios, boycotts don't work because they just destroy potential of everything else. I mean, case in point was Star Wars. When The Last Jedi came out, people were upset. So out of retaliation, they boycotted Solo, which was arguably a fantastic movie. They boycotted Solo, and then because of that, the studio said, we're not doing spin-offs anymore. And then they killed the Boba Fett movie, they killed the Obi-Wan movie, they killed all that stuff. And then they dragged those stories out into TV shows, and I still think that the movie version should have been better and would have been better. But boycotting didn't do anything but hurt fans in the long run.
Do we need to support the James Gunn animated stuff that's coming? I feel like if those things do good numbers and there's an audience for those.
Yeah, I think honestly, I mean, not to sound like the devil's advocate here, but in a studio system, you only get fun money to do fun projects if your other projects are successful. So if you boycott DC's everything and expect DC to make things that you want, if they don't have the money to make the things you want, they won't make those things because they can't. So if you boycott James Gunn, who is a friend of Zack, who supports Zack, and then say, I want Zack to do something, and he's like, I would love to give Zack something, but I have no money now because you boycotted this film, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Like, I love Zack's work. I love Zack's work. I'm ride or die with Zack's stuff. I love it. But at the same time, I'm also very loyal to the characters. And if James Gunn's DCU does these characters justice, I'm going to be there every day. I'm going to show up on day one. I'm going to be there. I'm going to support them because as much as I love Zack's interpretation of Batman, I also love Tim Burton's interpretation of Batman. I love Bruce Timm's interpretation of Batman. I love the character more than the individual interpretation. So if you want more interpretations, show up.
And I was gonna add this is that if because even though there's gonna be a lot of big focus on DC universe, if they're successful, they're still gonna also invest into Elseworld stuff, which is where the Snyderverse would fall into this one. So it's like, again, I'm the same way Taylor is that I love DC. Again, Zack Snyder is one of my favorite filmmakers. I love his take on the DC series, but I do want to see what other filmmakers do. Just like how I love Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight movies, like how I loved Smallville's interpretation of Superman, how I love the Arrowverse, how it's like I love that we can get so many variables of the DC world, and that's the thing. Zack is the same way. Like one of the things that I love about Zack early on was when he did early interviews with Man of Steel, and someone has asked something about Smallville, and he has said, God bless for Smallville for keeping Superman, around in television for 10 years, giving people exposure to that character. It's, again, that just shows you that even the man that you guys are supporting, he also supports other DC interpretations. So
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think
So,
now
I
that
mean,
we are at a full circle place where, you can kind of, I think that we're done at a point of nitpicking these things. I think you have to watch everything in its entirety. I think you have to watch Man of Steel and BVS and his Justice League to understand what the full impact of this whole story was. I think it's a much powerful piece when viewed in that way. And I think that unfortunately is how Zack Snyder tells stories. They are very long stories, and in its entirety, you're going to get a central thesis, but he paints with a very long brush. And I think it's great that we were able to
He does,
finish
and-
this and get to a full circle place.
yeah, 100%. And I think that's something that people tend to forget. Like, Zach tells his stories very similar to how Tolkien tells his stories. And imagine if the Lord of the Rings came out and the Fellowship of the Ring wasn't received well by fans, so they cut it right then. Obviously, you don't finish the story with the other two parts. Like, you need the whole story, and that's what Zach needs as well. Like, Zach's, I mean, you got to give James the benefit of the doubt as well. When James and Co. said that, they said flat out that we have a 10-year plan, let the man cook, because we don't know what the end, what's at the end of the tunnel, right? You know that, okay, Superman's involved, Batman's involved, the core heroes are involved. Apparently, the Authority is going to be there, but you don't know what else is going to happen until you see the big picture. So we have to let the reactionary stuff stop and kind of just let it go. I mean, Harry Potter is a franchise of how many movies? You can't
8.
start one and just be like, oh, that was good, I'm done, right? You have to see the whole story. But
Taylor, by the way,
Prime is back. Turns out he had some internet issues and he got booted.
Oh, and
You're back, Prime.
he's back. He's alive. No, Taylor, I was just gonna say,
But
because
some of the comments that came through
Sorry.
when we were saying this, I want to bring up a couple more comments real fast. Sucks how toxic Snyder fans will hate on Gunn, even if they express, if he was there to express during Snydercon to support the new CCU. Like, Zach has said that multiple times that he's going to show up as a fan because he loves the character. So I don't think that he's going to. I don't think Zach himself is going to boycott what James does. And even James supported Snydercon, helped give Zach the green light to show this movie in IMAX, and even said he's donating this weekend for the AFSP. So, I mean, people look for a villain. James Gunn isn't the villain.
No, he's not.
But
And
the next comment I wanted to bring up, just the very fact the Snyder Cut was released is a massive blessing.
yes,
It is.
And
especially during the time it came out. Oh, sorry, sorry.
no. What I was saying is the sad part about it is that they get something. We all get something that we were fighting, that we was campaigning for, and that we wanted.
Yeah.
But it's just like they took this inch and they wanted to stretch it into a mile. So it's not. And that's all I'm gonna say. But all I would just say is that it's not a good look moving forward. But other than that, it is what it is.
I always kind of think back to, there's one of my all-time favorite movies, and I know Michael's seen this because it's a beautiful movie. It's called Dan in Real Life, and it's with Steve Carell, and it's kind of just a drama movie, not a comedy really whatsoever. But he's a widower, and he's talking about like how he's not going to get back in the game and whatnot. And he said there was a line in that movie that always reminds me of how the Snyderverse is, where he said, "I hit the lottery. To ask for anything more would be greedy." And I've always felt that way with the Snyderverse. When we won with the Zack Snyder's Justice League coming out. We truly won. We got it. We got something that we were not supposed to see, right? And because of that, we changed the world. And I will forever be grateful for the fact that we got this movie. And if we get anything else after this, it'll be even more of a blessing. But we don't have to, because we already achieved a miracle. And
Yes.
it's kind of a mindset thing to me. Like, when you are happy and you are content and you are truly grateful for what you have received, then life gives you more after that. But you can't be greedy and expect more, and then like you'll get more when you're happy with what you have, when you're satisfied with what you have. And I've always been on that mindset where we succeeded at changing the world. That's good enough for me. And if we get more, awesome. I'm all there for it.
Yeah, I would say this, and to piggyback off of that is that, like I said, it'll be great if it gets continued, but I think people need to start to understand and realize is that they need to embrace what is about to transpire now and what we're about to get into the future. I think that is good that we're not going to get anything pretty much outside of the Flash for a big event, DC event outside of the Flash. And I'm not trying to crap on Aquaman for the people that are really, really looking forward to Aquaman. You know, I'm a DC fan, I'll watch it, but the Flash is going to be the big pillar, and then we're not going to get anything it really big until 2025. So when July hits and Superman Legacy comes out, that's when the whole new starts. And I think it's a good thing that it's going to be 2 years. It's going to be 2 years before we get anything highly significant really from DC. I mean, yeah, we're going to get the shows. We're going to get Creature Commandos. We're going to get the Waller series and everything and all that. I'm just talking about stuff that's on the big screen because the general casual audience is they're not really going to watch the shows. They might, but they're not pretty much not going to really watch the shows all like that. They're really looking for the theater. So people is just going to have to get ready to embrace what's coming. And I believe that James Gunn is doing it and Sheffield is going to do a good job and what they're going to do. So everybody just needs to just embrace it, you know, and just get ready to embrace it. You got 2 years to really set your mind around it and go from there. That's how I look at it.
Amen.
Yeah. I mean, I've talked to a few people from behind the scenes, and the common consensus is that The Flash is not only a love letter to Zack's work, but also a send-off to the Snyderverse. And
right.
The fact that we're still getting Aquaman afterward, it's kind of weird to me, but I think Aquaman should have already came out. But apparently that movie's got some issues that are trying to work out. But I did talk to somebody yesterday who did confirm that the dialogue in The Flash, the final cut of the movie, does make reference to things that only happened in the Snyder cut versus the theatrical cut. So even though the movie is meant to be somewhat ambiguous to which cut it follows, the fact that Flash and Batman have a conversation about when he traveled back in time and reset things didn't happen in the theatrical cut.
Yeah. It's not ambiguous. It's not ambiguous to the audience. There is only one version of the Justice League. Yeah. It is Zack Snyder's version of the Justice League. Exactly. And people that are going to go see the Flash movie also know that. And it's funny and crazy that we have to pretend like it's not the thing that's going on. There is no other version. There is a definitive Justice League, and it's streaming on HBO Max.
There is. It's like we were talking about this before we did the show. At Andy was like, "So which version of Batman are we watching today?" I'm like, "The only version that exists."
Oh my god!
The only version of Batman.
Why would you do it? Why would you do
that? The theatrical cut has been phased out. Zack's cut.
Thank you, Taylor.
It's like,
thank
to me,
you.
like,
thank
when
you.
people say, "Oh, yeah, I saw that bus and I threw you under it," like there. But no, I know what you mean. Like people ask, obviously, like which version are we watching, and that is a valid question, because it is. But the only cut that should exist is Zack's cut, and Zack's cut is the Ultimate Edition. Same thing with Justice League. The only cut that should exist is Zack's cut, and that's his version.
You know,
and that's what audiences are responding to.
No, I was just the only point I'm going to say is that it's kind of funny because we talked about it prior before we did this. Is that, and Andy just didn't know, but is that they're fading out the theatrical version of these movies. Now I don't know how they're going to get rid of them entirely. I don't know how they're going to do it because I understand they're still under contract. They still got to be tied to networks, and they still got to make their run or whatever deals that they have. But I don't, I don't know how long. You said what?
You
Well,
buy the
you know,
network and then get rid of it. No.
well, that too. I know. Once the contract of the network gets
Yeah.
done, you know, I mean, they
Yeah.
can get rid of it all they want and then just do it that way. But it depends on how long the deals are with these networks and how they're going to keep them on that contract, on that deal. That's the question. Especially, it kind of makes me upset because you have BVS, the real version, but they still show the theatrical. Why? On the TV networks, and that's going
But
to
at
be
the same time, yeah. At the same
Go ahead,
time,
go
most TV networks don't show director's cuts of anything because of content. So it makes sense that they would show the theatrical. And going forward, like most people know that if you're going to watch like Species on the Sci-Fi Channel, you're not going to get the whole movie, right? You're going to have to watch it on DVD, right? Because that's how content works on TV, right? I mean, I remember as a kid when Michael and I used to be like, "Oh, we saw this movie," and you like, it doesn't count. We saw it on FX. It was censored. Like,
Right, it's not the real
that's how
movie.
it is. Like most people know that the real version is the real version of the one you watch. But as we're wrapping up in these next 9.5 minutes, I want to again point out that for those of you who are on here and are watching, these links that I'm putting on the bottom of the screen, the FullCircle Ink to the People shirt is still going for sale. It still has 32 hours, so it's still through the weekend. It is the Jim Lee design of the Justice League with Darkseid in the center. They had a goal of $10,000, and they're almost at $30K. It is $32, but it's all for donation purposes for the AFSP. So if you go to the link, buy yourself a shirt. Apparently, this shirt actually, it even says, this shirt delivers with 2 weeks of purchase. I'm apparently due for my shirt this next week, and I'm ready for it. I wish it would have came already because I would have sported the crap out of it today. But if those of you who buy it, you'll expect it within the next couple weeks. So that's a huge one.
Look how much,
bought
money they
2 of them.
raised. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Jim Lee did this pro bono because Jim Lee loves Zack Snyder. So that's a fantastic thing. That's, again, DC supporting Zack because Jim Lee runs DC Publishing and he did this for Zack. And I don't know if people know how much money people make for these kind of things. I know like lesser known comic book artists can charge anywhere between $800 to $1,000 per individual page of work. Jim Lee's contract is probably like, 10 grand to draw a single page. He did it for free. Like, that's way cool. And I want them to release this image separately as a poster, and I'm going to make that.
I hope they really do.
That'll be the poster for my. Yeah. I still believe that the reason why it's not been released yet is because they're waiting for the 32 hours to finish so that no one can scam or pirate the image into their own shirts before the fundraiser is over. That's my theory.
Right.
The other link that's on the bottom of the screen is for the actual fundraiser event. And again, for those of you who've watched this the entire hour and 20 minutes, this is the third or fourth time I brought this up. Donate for the FullCircle event. $1 gets you in the running to win a signed poster, which we already announced a winner before. $10 gets you in the running for the spacecraft replica with signature by Zack Snyder. $25 puts you in the running for the fantastic vinyl set of the soundtrack for Zack Snyder's Justice League. Going up to $50, a 1/12 scale Batmobile signed by Zack Snyder. And then $100 puts you in the running to win a custom-made statue, and that's the statue on the screen here of the Heroes Park rebuilt statue. Announcements for winners are going to be all weekend. Like I said, keep your DMs open. People will find you. They will tell you how you win and get in contact to put these out. But donate to the AFSP. Even if you don't, if you want the stuff, donate. If you don't want the stuff, donate. It goes to a good cause. Scan that QR code if you're watching this on TV. Go to the link, download, donate everything. Like, it's a huge, huge deal. And as brought up before, and look at that, we actually passed 20K, which is fantastic. Because before we started, we talked about how the donation was on the cusp of turning 20K. It's now past 20K. The goal was $3,000. Now it's at $20,200 and some change, and still going. Every time I hit this happy refresh button, it does go up a bit more. So go ahead, go to the website, donate, follow the instructions. Very simple. If you donate $1, you get in the running for this. Even says here, you can make multiple donations. So if you really want a poster, donate $1 dozen times, 20 times, 30 times, 40 times, and it will get you higher. It's not like voting where only one vote means one thing. Like you can vote 1,000 times and probably get that poster.
This charity is exactly like voting. I vote as many times. Anytime I see a polling place, I go inside and vote. I cast lots of votes. I want to make sure my vote is heard.
Yep, and that's called voting fraud, and you're a problem. You're part of the problem, Michael.
Thank you.
They don't care about that stuff here. Make sure to include your full name and optional social media handle if you want to. Luckily for me, I put it in there. The people that are running this thing do know who I am. So even if I forgot to put my social media on there, they'll be like, hey, was this you? So that's a thing. But again, donate to the AFSP. Donate, be there. Like, the point of this is for the AFSP, not for anything else, but to help make the world a better place.
Hell yeah.
It's time to pop your popcorn, everybody. It's time to get your drinks ready. It's time to get your TVs turned on and get ready to start the movie.
Oh, and this comment here, pretty fantastic. Certain employers will also match whatever you donate. So if you work for a certain company, if you donate, the thing will ask you at the end, do you want to see if your employer is eligible? They will search. You'll put them in, they'll search, and then they'll be like, okay, we're going to contact them on your behalf and have them match your donation. So if you work for like some big company that will be like, yeah, we will match donations, and you put a $50 in, you just put $100 toward suicide prevention. So fantastic.
Very cool.
So do not sleep on this. This is a very cool thing, a very good cause to be a part of. So again, in about 3.5 minutes, it's time to start BVS Ultimate Edition. So get your TVs ready, get yourself queued up, because I don't know about you people, but popping in, going through your menus and finding your show or getting it all, it does take more than 2 seconds. So if you want to be on time, get onto it, because Vero will actually host their own live stream of everything. If it's not already playing, it should be in a few moments. So head over to Vero if you have one. If you don't, you can check over with Vero's YouTube channel. They sometimes have it live. If they don't have it live, they'll have a recap of everything when it's done. So I don't see anything's popped up on their channel yet. So I'm going to assume that Vero is going to host it exclusively on their channel until it's concluded. Then they'll post the whole thing on YouTube for those of you who can't watch it on Vero. But again, Vero is free. It takes about 10 minutes to sign up. So it should not take you a long time to watch this live if you want to.
It's a very cool app.
Head over there.
Very cool app.
Yeah, it's like, it's pretty much what Instagram should be. So,
well,
it's pretty
Instagram
straightforward.
isn't smart, so.
Yeah. But on that note, everyone, we are wrapping in about 2 minutes. So, any final thoughts?
Actually, hey,
first question that popped up. Is it on Zach's Vero channel? It's actually not. It's actually the coolest thing that they did. If you go into Vero and if you pop in to the app, when it loads up, it'll actually pop up on the top of your screen no matter what you're doing, one live event. You click on that and it will say, it'll take you right to the session and you can just pop into it. It actually will pop up across the top of the screen. See it right there? Just one live event. So you don't have to do much. You just got to open up the app, tap the thing, and there it is. And then boop, and then it starts. It's not, oh, they're doing something. No, it's not ready yet. Okay. So far, it's just the load screen. So in about a minute, people will start showing up.
Also, if you want to watch it, if you don't want to watch it on the app, Vero has tweeted it out as well, where you can actually watch it on your laptop. So they have an actual personal link.
Yeah, they have a desktop version of the service.
Yep.
And it's way easier to use. Way easier to use.
Yeah, it is.
Especially for stuff like this. I was trying to watch the live stream last night on my phone, and I just went to my computer and I just cast it to my TV because it was easier that way.
Oh, that's neat.
On that note, everyone,
Um,
thank you all for joining us today as we talked about Zack Snyder, we talked about the AFSP, the Snyderverse trilogy, and Full Circle. And in the next 20 seconds, cue up your movie, hit play, and let's all watch this beautiful thing together. And then tomorrow, make sure you join everyone who's participating for Zach's actual culmination of the event. And tonight, the ACS Universe is doing their show immediately after the Q&A session. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you then.